Welcome back to Square Off. Biden will likely share the stage with Harris again this week before a national audience at the Democratic National Convention. So what do we expect to see at the convention? What kind of counter-programming will Donald Trump and fellow Republicans offer? Joining us with some answers, our politics panel, Republican consultant Barrett Marson of Marson Media, and Democratic political strategist Matt Grodsky of Matters of State. Welcome back, Barrett, and welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good to see you guys. Matt, I'll start with you. One of the big themes of this convention is going to be the first African-American woman nominated to be president of the United States. How significant do you think that will be over the course of the 84 days?
Greatly significant. I mean, I think that the energy we've seen over the last 30 days or so has been reminiscent of 2008 with Obama. So I think it's going to be a fantastic convention. I think it's going to be very unifying. I know there's obviously some protests planned, but you know, there's always some bumps at these conventions, right? So I think that the programming is going to be great and historic. So looking forward to it.
And what about that, Barrett? Given what we've seen from the Harris-Walz campaign in just a few weeks, it seems they're ready for this moment.
Well, it's the first, Asian to actually be at the convention.
East Asian?
Yeah, East Asian. So whether she's black or not apparently is up for some discussion.
Well,
but,
okay, let's not go there.
Anyways, I think it's going. She got this incredible bump. Biden was sagging in the polls, and now it's a whole new race, and she got a bump, and she's going to get another bump, and she's going to be up in many of the polls coming out of Chicago. So really, I'm looking for that Labor Day, with a traditional start of the campaign, where we really start to see probably the race tightening, and the sugar high, as they call it, from being elevated, and then the convention. So really, I'm looking for that first week of September to see how the race is going to really play out for that next 2 months.
Now, there are concerns. 30,000 protesters are expected to show up on Monday, and that might continue through the convention, largely pro-Palestinian, pushing their case. What could that do? How could that affect what viewers see of this event?
I mean, you can't take it lightly, but I think that she'll likely diffuse all that in the messaging that she delivers and that surrogates deliver throughout the convention, the way she did at the rally this past weekend. I mean, she stopped mid-speech to address the concerns there, laid out very clearly, what her sentiments and beliefs are. And I think that there is a feeling amongst the entire party that while that's obviously very important, we've got to focus on winning this election and then addressing the issues in the Middle East once we retain the White House. So I think that's going to be the theme. So while there will be protests, I don't imagine it's going to derail the entire event.
There's always a lot of talk about Republicans are not united, the disunity in the Republican Party. I think we're going to see on full display the disunity in the Democratic Party, especially over policy in the Middle East. So that's going to be something to watch. Will it translate in November to some Democrats staying home?
Donald Trump, what's he going to do while all this is going on? There are reports, as we speak, it had not confirmed that he's going to be in Arizona at the border. Again, not confirmed. What's he going to do next week?
I think different from I think the Bedminster Club Championship is that week, so he's got to get ready for that. Sure, look, he loves to counter program. I mean, when he was on The Apprentice, other networks ran series, and he tried to beat them, and so he will come to the border. The border is such an important issue, so it would be wise to try and highlight that stuff, to not necessarily stay quiet, even though, generally speaking, the nominees for the other party have really gone dark for much of the convention. Donald Trump doesn't play that way.
He can't resist.
No sharks or boats at the border, so he should be pretty safe. So,
let's put a timestamp on this question. We're talking about this Friday morning. We expect the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. campaign and the Cornel West presidential campaign, both independents, to turn in petition signatures on Friday to be on the November ballot. If those signatures pass muster, they make it on the ballot, who do Kennedy or West harm?
I think Kennedy harms Trump, so fine. Let him on there. Let's see what happens. I think he pulls away from that vote. I think West, I'd actually be surprised if he does make it. I imagine there's going to be some significant challenges there. If that's the case, sure, that pulls away a little bit from the more liberal wing of the party. But I just think the momentum that we've seen for Harris, the energy that's there, it's totally paradigm shifted the situation over the past 2 months. So I don't think it's going to be very significant.
Well, look, the last election was settled by, less than 12,000 votes. So Cornel West a, popular progressive voice. And, even Robert F. Kennedy. Remember, Trump hasn't gotten more than 50% in either of his 2 elections here in Arizona. So they both of them have a real potential to make a difference in who wins here. Now, assuming, of course, Robert F. Kennedy has lost the bear vote. So I don't know whether he will do as well here in Arizona without the Bears.
Let's turn to an endorsement last week. Former Republican Governor Doug Ducey said it's time to put aside differences and Republicans to come together on issues that matter to mainstream conservatives. So he endorsed Donald Trump and Kari Lake. Trump for president, Kari Lake for the U.S. Senate. Is anybody surprised?
I mean, I'm not surprised given that he's a Republican. I think what's disappointing is that we've seen over the last several cycles that there's a consistent coalition of Republicans that recognize when it's time to put principles before party. You've seen that obviously in 2022 with the Fontes race. Saw it just recently with Gallego's run for Senate. So why Ducey felt the need to do this is odd to me, especially given what I know he knows the stakes are in this election. I don't expect him to endorse a Democrat. Nobody needs him to do that. But to come out in this way, I found it was odd and just a little disappointing.
I want to put a soundbite up from 2022 in the last days of the Ducey administration. Here's what he said back then about what happened in 2020 and 2022. Take a listen.
So we have to turn the page on what happened in 2020, and candidates matter. And the campaign that those candidates runs matters. And I think you saw the results across the country on folks that ran good campaigns and were candidates. As a governor, I think you ought to run trying to be governor for all the people.
In that interview, Ducey basically criticized Trump in 2020 and Kari Lake. Did he need to do this? And more importantly, will this even make a difference?
Well, I don't know that he needed to do it, but shocking, a conservative Republican doesn't approve of far-left ideas and policies that Harris and Gallego represent. So not really a surprise, but also, honestly, after this week, will anybody he tweeted, right? 2, 3
tweets, yes.
He X'd. And I don't know that by next week we'll care.
And if anyone has more confidence in elections in Russia and Middle Eastern countries not named Israel, that is a joke. That is a joke.
You know what? Then our election in America is a joke and Maricopa is a joke.
Go ahead with Russia. Have fun voting in Russia. See how that goes.
Welcome back. That was Republican Maricopa County Supervisor Thomas Galvin unloading on a pro-Trump protester at last week's county board meeting. The board was certifying the results of an uneventful primary election, but that wasn't good enough for the protesters. Now, those protesters have used and abused the public comment period to harass board members all year long. There are concerns in Maricopa County and around the state about whether this is a preview of what could happen in the November election if that election is close. We're back with our politics panel, Republican consultant Barrett Marson, Democrat Matt Grodsky. Is this a sign of things to come?
100%. First off, we notice some of the leading Republicans who won their race haven't been complaining about any election integrity issues because they won. So if they lose come November, I suspect they'll go back to their old ways. And, I think every single meeting that of the County Board of Supervisors here in Maricopa features people who are election deniers without facts. And it's a real shame because they have perverted the process here.
And they have a right to speak, a public comment period, but they have abused it to the extent that the county board has had to remodel the whole room to protect themselves.
Because they represent a clear danger. These aren't just people who want to get something off their chest. They advocate oftentimes for violence. And so it's important that these new security measures are there because who knows who's going to show up to these meetings. I mean, we've seen, obviously, people get convicted of making threats.
A danger?
Oh, it's a huge danger. And these guys take their messaging cues from the top. And you can already see Trump pivoting with the big lie 2.0, which he tends to do when he thinks that he's losing. So I think this is just going to ramp up, unfortunately. We all remember what happened in 2020 with those crowds there. So I think the security measures are unfortunately necessary, and you got to take them seriously.
Let's end with what's on your ballot in the fall. By the end of this week, the Arizona Supreme Court is expected to have ruled on all the outstanding pending legal challenges to initiatives. The Reproductive Rights Initiative still doesn't have the final go-ahead to be on the ballot. The Make Elections Fair Initiative, open primaries, that's also up for grabs. This past week, HCR 2060, the so-called SB 1070 Part 2, got cleared for the ballot. What are you watching on the ballot? And in the end, with all these initiatives likely to be on there, what's going to pass?
Well, I think it's going to be a very long ballot, which was a deliberate move by Republicans, if we remember back to session. But I think abortion gets through in a landslide. I think that's going to galvanize voters across the spectrum to come out and support it. HCR 2060, I think there's going to be some energy for that on the Republican side. I'm very interested in the Make Elections Fair Again initiative, because that has the potential to completely change the way our primary system works and puts an exclamation point on voters not wanting extremism in their politics.
Yeah. But, and I'll say that every good government reform of the last couple decades, clean elections, the Independent Redistricting Commission, term limits, really hasn't worked out the way those backers, told voters they would. So I'm watching that. But the biggest, the elephant here is the abortion initiative. That's a $50 to $100 million campaign by the pro side. And, I think Hank talked a little bit about that $13 million that's sitting there. Part of that money, I think, is going to get spent on the abortion initiative. But the backers say they're going to spend 8 figures pretty easy. So I think you're going to see Senate-like campaign funds on that initiative. And so that's going to, if that brings out the kids, those 18 to 24-year-olds. The Utes. If that brings them out and they stay for Harris and Gallego, that it's going to be a good year. And also whether the voters who support that, well, whether they'll hold it against Republican candidates who maybe don't support it.
That's the question.
That's a big question as well.
And got to end it there. Barrett Marson, Matt Grodsky, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.